Welcome to episode 11 of the Wheels and Beyond podcast. I'm your host, Ben Durham, and today we have Hailey Tallman joining us as our guest. She lives here in London, Canada, but has also lived and traveled in many other places around the world. She's never owned a car, which is a feat as a woman living in London, which is a very car-centric city with a minimal amount of cycling infrastructure. Although, a connected grid, culture, and community has been emerging in recent years. Hailey's commuted to all of her jobs by bike, the furthest of those being over a 20-kilometer round trip, and she cycles year-round. In this episode, we chat about so many incredible bicycle-related topics, and even some topics I bet you've never heard of before. Things like her amazing artwork that focuses on envisioning the world that we want to live in. How not owning a car has saved her so much money that she was able to save up for a down payment on her house. How bicycles are obviously the best post-apocalyptic vehicles out there. How our society victimizes women and cycling in similar ways. Think, but what were they wearing? And this is something that she longs to change for the better through how she lives her daily life. And topics like walkability, superblocks, a crazy bike theft story, which is kind of funny actually, risk aversion, cycling pretentiousness, and a bunch more stuff. All in all, cycling gives Hailey the freedom, happiness, and peace of mind that getting around by car never could. So let's jump in. I think this is the latest podcast that we have done.
Like latest in the day?
Yeah. So like the sun is setting. So we're going to see how this looks. But luckily, most of this is audio. So I think people can tolerate the drastically shifting lighting conditions.
Yes.
But I guess that's where we're going to start.
Yeah.
Who are you? We're going to just start with that.
I'm Hailey Tallman. I am a local to London, Ontario artist and activist and art therapist.
And as soon as we started this, sirens. And before that, dog barking. You know what? With the siren in the background, we're going to change up things. You had mentioned that you're an art therapist, you're Hailey, but we're going to divert. We're going to go over to Hamilton Road right now because that's like a throughway. This was not on the list of questions. What a surprise.
Yes.
How do you feel it could change if it was more pedestrianized?
If it was just more friendly to active transportation and like walking and cycling. Is that what you mean? Yeah. I think that the businesses would do a lot better. First in everyone's mind is where would people park? Side streets maybe. But I just really think that the road would be more pleasant to walk down. Like I just don't walk down it because of sirens and people going 60, 70 kilometers, even though I think it's a 50 kilometer. Anyway.
I think so. I think it's 50. Okay. Back to the main thing.
I paint about bikes a lot.
I was going to ask about the art therapy there, and you have a bunch of beautiful bike-related and active transportation-related art.
Yes.
Can you tell me more about that and when that started?
Yes, I'd love to. So I have always been an artist, like my whole life. I started painting about bikes and active transportation when I started learning more about how important it is to really envision the world we want to live in and like have a clear vision of that in our minds. So another way to think about it is there's all these movies about like the apocalypse or how the world's going to end or like dystopian futures. We need visions for the future that are like steampunk, that are solar punk.
I was going to say solar punk. Yeah.
That depict to people so that they can start actively imagining a better world. Images of, pedestrianized areas. In fact, you can kind of almost zoom into the future in the present day by going to Spain and going to their super blocks where there are massive blocks that are blocked off to car traffic and it's just bikes and people walking around and, you know, having photos of that on your wall, having paintings of just like bikes. I like to like glorify the bike in my paintings. You might need to throw in a few clips of my paintings so people know what I'm talking about. Oh
yeah, there we go.
But yeah.
Send them my way.
Like they're a beautiful machine. They're awesome. They're ingenious and they're so simple.
I have to bring this up. For post-apocalyptic films, you know how the big pickup truck or these tanks of vehicles are idolized, speaking of idolizing, in those post-apocalyptic films. You know what actually would be the tool of the apocalypse?
A bike
Yeah.
after the apocalypse? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like...
How are we going to get around? Like we are going to run out of fossil fuels.
And also, gas is only good for 6 months. Like,
oh, my God. After...
Seriously. No, really. They have
after
all
the
these
last
cases
well runs dry, like, if my tank has gas in it, it's only good for 6 months?
Yeah. Like, that's a huge failure that, again, this is why I go off on all these different topics, because they pop up so naturally. And in this case, yeah, like you were bringing up the apocalypse, is like, well, yeah, bicycles are the mode of transportation that are the most reliable piece of equipment with the least amount of, maintenance.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, had to just say that.
Yeah. And like the reason that we have been able to manufacture all that we have is because of oil. There's no fuel on the planet that is as efficient as fossil fuels. So right now, there should be laws forbidding people from making crap we don't need and keeping the last reserves of oil for like essentially building the things we're going to need when we don't have any more oil. Anyway.
No, that is super important. You bring this up, a lot of, I don't know, like it's something different from everyone. And
I mean, like people are like, true. Oh, when we run out of oil, wind turbines, solar energy. How are you going to make wind turbines without fossil fuels?
Yeah, like all the little gaskets and the other things and like the lubricant for...
But not even just that. Like, like the power it takes to build these things. Right?
Oh, right. Yeah. The actual plants, the factories.
The actual plants, running the plants, running the factories, running the machines that would build them. No. Not going to happen. That's why solar punk is so cool and steampunk is so cool, because it shows images of, essentially it's like people building things out of scrap parts of old machines that are basically the machines we use right now. And it's people building high rises and homes and communities and gardens and everything that we have today, but like none of it's new. It's all upcycled. It's an upcycled future. And so I like to paint about bikes because... Yeah,
sorry, back to the art. Yeah. No.
I mean, no, it's all part of it. Yeah. We need to start thinking about that and envisioning the future we want to have, because I think that one of the key things we need to hold on to is hope. Because it's easy to say, we're all screwed, like, we're not going to survive, even just what we're talking about. It's hard to even imagine a post-fossil fuel future, but we have to. We have to start imagining that so that we don't absolutely freak out when the massive changes that we're facing actually hit us. We have to start thinking about that it's not just going to be this horrible society that could actually be quite beautiful. It could send us back to... like a 1 mile, what is it? 1 mile diet, 1 mile.
Oh, yeah.
15
is it 10 mile diet or something? Oh, wait, no, the 100 mile diet.
100 mile diet and like 15-minute cities. It's all going to become a reality. Some of us are just trying to live it right now. So people think I'm like backwards or like weird or like not with the times sometimes, I think. I am assuming, because people don't say those things to your face. But when I tell them I've never had a car, they really scratch their heads, especially in London, Ontario, which is a very a city designed around the car. Does not have a great transportation system. I've never had a car living here. I actually feel like I'm ahead of the curve and actually like in the future riding my bike. And that's why I always say, my phrase, bikes are the future. And
my saying is so bikes are definitely part of it. The future is eclectic, not electric. And so that was not mine. And I'll put the credit up on screen because I cannot remember who said that. And it was a great presentation. It was a TED Talk, I believe. And he was like, it won't just be bikes. And it won't just be EVs or electric vehicles, because it can't be. Like right now, we're actually seeing the slump in sales of EVs. They're not here to save the world.
They're not in any way.
They're here to save the automotive industry. Yeah. And now they're really hard to manufacture and all of that stuff that goes along with it, along with like the range anxiety. Like really, I would say on the automotive side of things, I think Toyota was right
about hybrids being
the way, future of cars. Not necessarily, like, obviously they're an automotive company. That's like, yes, cars are their solution to everything. However, I think they were right on saying that, hey, not full EVs just right now, because we have the minerals and all of the stuff they have to mine. that's precious and very
Deep
difficult
sea mining.
Exactly. It's very hazardous, very not good. However, if you have like a 40-kilometer range on your hybrid car, that's going to get you through most people's commute, especially like sitting and idling in traffic. Guess what? Boom. It's not using gas. It's just sitting there.
Yes, I love that about it. I do love that about EVs.
Yes.
I can't believe I just said that, but I do.
They're pretty efficient when just sitting there doing nothing. Because motion takes up a lot of power.
Yes.
And is inefficient. But idling there with an internal combustion engine is just the worst feeling. And just the worst thing.
Just
useless.
Yeah.
Yep. So
not good for anyone, even people who love cars. You're wasting your money.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
If I know a light is long and I am driving, I will actively turn off my car because it doesn't have the auto off thing. I would love a hybrid. Oh, actually, question. So, like, do you use transit? And you said on our ride along that you used to walk a lot more.
Used to walk a lot more. Yeah, I moved. I feel like having an e-bike expanded the options, the circumference of the area of where I could live. Because I can get downtown in like 20 minutes on my e-bike without really breaking a sweat, which is amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing because you were able to, okay, we have to go over this. You were able to save up and
buy a house.
Because you have never driven or owned a car.
I drive.
Okay, sorry.
I've never owned a car. No, it's true.
There we go.
And as most people know who own a car, or even if you don't, like, cars are expensive. And I attribute never having owned a car to why I was able to save up for a down payment for my house.
When you transitioned to getting an electric bike, is there something when like someone is looking at you from their car or from just observers?
Yes. When
they see you on an electric bike, is there just this subliminal thought, because it's in my head, that, oh, they aren't just biking because they have to. And it sucks that this is even in my brain, but it's like, this is a choice. I actively made this choice, and I put money, a fair amount of money, towards this choice.
Yeah, and people don't understand that.
Yeah, it's just like...
Or people think that I'm like super wealthy because I just use my bike for like joy rides. And I'm like, no, it's my car.
Yeah. It's
my car.
Full-on car replacement. So,
yeah.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to call that out because it was just in my mind. I've never said that before, but there is that in my head. Ooh, your acoustics from before, your acoustic bikes. What were they like? Were they also cruisers? Were they upright? What was your journey?
They were like a, what do you call that?
Hybrid?
Yeah, hybrid bikes. I never really had like a speed bike or a mountain bike. Yeah, they were just, and I like the upright bikes for sure. Yeah, I had a Giant. I loved that. It got stolen. It got, I was living in Montreal, locked it to what I thought was like a pretty secure spot because there was a street light shining on it. And there was like a big sign, like a street sign at the top. And I went into this party for like a couple hours. And when I came out, the street sign had been removed. Someone had gotten a ladder, unscrewed the street sign. There must have been two people. For sure it was like a gang operation, I don't know, but like, and then they had lifted my bike, which was a heavy bike, all the way to the top of this. Yeah, like they had removed the sign, lifted my bike because it had a U-lock, all the way over the top of the pole, and then like my U-lock was just lying there. And
they just left the sign behind on the ground, or
yeah. So that was a first. That was a first, but it happens. Oh, yeah.
It's horrible, and it's so funny at the same time. You just come out and be like...
It was sad. It was a very sad day.
But at the same time, you had said, like, at the same time, was this the one that you lost, and then you were like, do I get another one?
No,
or was that
so when I lived in Montreal, especially, I did not need a car. It's extremely, in fact, it's like expensive... Inconvenient to get around anywhere in the inner city of Montreal with a car. So I needed a bike right away. So I posted on, Facebook, because I am a bit older of that generation. But Facebook's great when you need something from friends. And was just like, does anybody have a bike that they're not using? A friend of mine right away responded. It was a Trek. It was like a good bike.
I would say Giant and Trek are like on the same level.
Yeah. And it was too small for me, but it was a deal. I got it from her, and then I rode that for years, and it was extremely uncomfortable. So yeah, when that got stolen out of my shed, which in that case we hadn't even locked the shed, that was on us. Yeah, it was just like, why not look into getting an e-bike? And I'll also say this as we were talking on the ride along about the TVP and not feeling that safe, like riding on it, especially like dusk. Okay, but like after dark, definitely not as a woman.
It gets dark.
There's no lights.
Yeah.
There's no lights on there. Although my e-bike does have a very bright light, and I will, if I have to, ride on the TVP with my e-bike because it's so solid. Like I feel like anybody wants to take me on while I'm on my e-bike because I'm going fast. I can go fast. So it's also like a way of just giving me more confidence as a cyclist. It just feels so sturdy, and I can get speed on it. I'm sitting up high so I can like see everything. Do you know what I mean? And then like it has a super bright light.
Yep. I can't remember who I was talking to. This literally was a conversation I had within the last 3 days about exactly that, where you feel safer. I know Natalia feels safer because she has, hey, hit it into high gear or the highest mode and get out of that situation.
Yes.
You have that ability. You can just floor it out of there.
Hightail it out of there.
Yeah.
Nobody can catch you.
Yeah, exactly. And so, no, seriously, that
Yeah,
I think really
for
matters.
real.
So yeah, no, sorry. Did you want to continue on that? So there's no lights on the TVP, which actually is good for nature, right? I think you've heard that.
That's true. But if the city wants to use it as this catch-all, we have how many kilometers of, what do they call it? Biking infrastructure, cycling infrastructure, but it's not usable to most women that I know would not ride it after dark. And it's not plowed in the winter.
Which is a double doozy, actually, now that I'm thinking of it. So let's say part of it is plowed and then you hit an unplowed spot. That's a perfect place for a booby trap because your e-bike cannot overcome like unplowedness. It's like, again, if we're talking like, well, haha, your e-bike can't do that. Well, one, studded tires, but no, just like how a car, if you hit a pile of snow, you're not going anywhere.
Right.
So same with, unfortunately, a bicycle.
Ooh, yeah, you get kind of trapped. Yeah.
I'm just thinking that.
Yeah, so
yeah, that's a problem because it's not plowed.
Indeed. And so when I do have to take, public transit, like the bus, I get super paranoid about it and I like leave my house. Like it just makes me... It takes a lot more time out of my day because I have to get there. Because sometimes in London, the buses come early. Or they're just really, really late. Because we don't have buses that come every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes. They come like, if you're lucky, every 15. So yeah, just takes a lot more of my day. So, I was thinking in advance of the podcast, like, why have I never owned a car? Or like, a lot of teens are like, yay, I'm 16, I'm gonna go get my driver's license. And I didn't get mine until I was 23. And that was because I had to, because I was working as a refugee resettlement worker in Toronto, and I needed to be able to drive a pickup truck to help newcomers to Canada move into their apartments. But until then, I just didn't see a need. And I like the efficiency. I would have had to borrow from my parents, figure it out with my parents. I like the immediacy and the freedom. Like, I just feel like of all the vehicles, unless I owned a car, but I don't feel that that gives me freedom because of the cost. The immediacy of like, I don't have to look at a schedule. I can leave anytime I want. There's just nothing that beats that. That's why people love their cars.
Yeah.
People don't want to wait on a schedule.
Yep.
Unless they live in a big city where you don't look at the schedule. You just walk to the subway and it comes every 5 minutes. It's fantastic.
Exactly. Yeah. We were in Greece and the transit was great.
Yeah.
It is a fairly car-dependent country as well.
Yes.
But in the core, we quite enjoyed the transit lines because, you go down there and just, they're coming. And I love having that sign there saying 3 minutes until the next train.
Yeah.
And it counts down. You're like, and boom. And you see the lights coming and you're like,
it's amazing.
It's coming. It's
so
right there.
Efficient. Yeah.
And it doesn't ever get stuck in traffic.
Yes.
So I'm sure there's maintenance and other people will always say that.
Yeah.
Of course, that's with everything. There's construction or maintenance. There's something. But for the most part, like it has a pretty good uptime.
No, it's great.
Yep.
I think because I lived so many cities other than London. So like, I went to Lisbon. and I had to get this shirt.
She's showing her shirt right now. There we go.
Yes. It says Lisboa, which is Lisbon in Portuguese. Yeah, there's just trains everywhere. Like, you want to get to the seaside, you jump on a train for $5, you know? Halifax. I've just always lived bikeable distances from, you know, I went to university in Halifax, so I lived a bikeable distance from my university. You know, Montreal, I actually ended up living quite far east in Hochelaga, which is like great for learning French. It's a very French end of the city, and it was quite far from downtown where Concordia was. But because there was protected bike lanes and bike paths everywhere, I could bike it in 35 minutes. And it was like, I don't know, it was quite far. I never measure kilometers. 15, 20?
Actually, you know what? I haven't thought about that, because when in a car, you know how in Canada there's like jokes online. It's like, oh, it's a 2-hour drive. Like, people don't say kilometers, but I always like.
Oh, I didn't know that about Canadians.
Okay, that's apparently like we say like, oh yeah, it's 2 hours to Toronto.
Yeah, we don't say the kilometers. Yeah,
exactly.
It's true.
But inherently in my head, I just think of 100 kilometers an hour. Okay, it's going to be like that's a. I actually don't know. I think it's like about a 200-kilometer drive.
Yeah,
one way. Is that right?
That's right.
I don't know. Okay.
I think so.
Well, okay, I think so. That just seems like a far distance.
I think it's like 220, 250.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have that in my head. But then you just said this, and I agree. Like, I guess I just think of how long will it take me, not the distance when it comes to bikes.
I never think about the distance.
I didn't even think of this until now. Like,
so cyclists do it too? Yeah. I mean, it depends on the brain. Yeah. My brain just thinks in time.
That's fair. I'd be curious to see what other people think, because when I was coming here, I'm like, okay, it's between like 20 and 30 minutes depending on lights by biking.
Yeah.
And I have I don't know. I do not know how many kilometers that is.
Me neither.
Yep, I don't. So
yeah.
I just learned something about myself.
Yeah. And so like, I don't know what makes me such an outlier, because I guess I am kind of an outlier, because there aren't a ton of women who cycle in London, like to commute. Like, they'll ride on the TVP. They'll have like a nice upright, you know, what do they call them?
Upright bike?
Like just the chill out bikes with like with the big seats, and you cruise,
like
a cruiser.
There we go.
I'm like, you cruise. There you go.
That's the thing.
Yeah. And maybe I'm totally wrong about that, but I do know from doing the pedal poll, because I do that every year. Mm-hmm. And that's where we count the number of cyclists at a certain spot. The majority are men, white men, who are commuting by bike. The amount of women who've said to me, like, aren't you scared? Like, they don't say you're crazy. Well, my friends say I'm crazy, but like, you know, aren't you scared? And I'm just like, no, I'm not. Scary things happen every single time I cycle. I will say that.
Can you give me
but
some
it's not
examples?
Because I'm a woman. It's just part of being a cyclist. An example is just like, there's a painted bike lane, and along Colburn, actually it's protected, and then it becomes painted, and it comes right up to Horton, and then you need to cross. You're competing. You have a car lane beside you, and on the other side where Colburn continues, there's no more bike lane.
Right.
There's no more bike lane.
I know exactly what
it's a
southbound.
Bottleneck.
Yeah.
Like, that is my route to and from downtown, and every single day I see a cyclist. Like, basically, cars should just let the cyclist go first, or the cyclist should go behind the car, how it's designed right now. It's just par for the course. And then you get very aggressive people who rev their engines, say things. I don't know. I haven't been catcalled that much. I'm lucky, but you're already vulnerable. And then someone's yelling at you, or someone's revving beside you. Like, it's just hard. It's hard to feel like a second class citizen. Mind you, as a feminist, as a woman and a feminist, I feel like, yeah, we've come a long way, but in many ways, women still are treated like the weaker sex, or like second class citizens. And so for me, cycling, I'm trying to make an analogy here. It feels similar.
I know what you're getting at, because I will botch this quote, but someone on the interwebs within the last month brought this up, and I was like, wow, this is actually amazing. Because if you hadn't noticed by either what I look like or my voice, I am a white guy. I don't know how you would see that, but I don't know. You probably, I don't know. I've figured that out. I'm a white guy and not yet middle-aged. But someone said that if you want to figure out what it feels like to be a woman out in public or a minority out in public, ride a bike.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, oh, dang. Again, I botched the quote. It was something along those lines.
Yes.
And it's like, boom. So I feel you.
Yes.
Because, people do all of the things because you are a vulnerable road user.
Yes.
Yes, I have the confidence and the privilege of being me and like confident. And again, the e-bike really helps out. Now we established that.
Yeah.
And
but they'll ask the same things.
Yeah.
They'll ask the same things to a cyclist or about a cyclist that they will ask about a woman if she gets assaulted. What were you wearing? Think about it.
oh, dang, that is, oh my goodness.
What
You're
were you
blowing
wearing?
my mind. Oh,
Were you
it's your fault,
wearing-
right?
Yeah.
Because, you
You
shouldn't
weren't
have
wearing
worn
high
that.
visibility.
Yeah.
You weren't wearing a helmet.
Yep. You shouldn't have
sorry,
worn
but
those
this little,
shorts. That
tiny-
dress.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For real, there's parallels.
Yeah, I'm. You're blowing my mind here.
Yeah.
I had read that quote, and now you're giving me examples. I'm like, oh my goodness.
No,
it's
I've
even,
thought about that a lot.
even more solidified.
I've thought about that a lot. It's something I love putting out into just people's consciousness. Like, why is it that we ask if a cyclist was wearing a helmet when they were killed? Like, really? Here's the ridiculous thing. So we have a mutual friend who doesn't really wear a helmet, doesn't believe in them. At the beginning, when I met this person, we would argue a lot about the helmet thing. And then he, who is from Brazil, let me know, I've seen friends like flattened, cut in half. Like, there's a lot of road violence in Brazil. Like, we think it's bad here. It's way, way, way worse. For a lot of reasons, density, population, regulations.
There's also the culture in Brazil. I was looking it up, and we were going to go. We couldn't because of other reasons. But basically, if you're at a stoplight, if you're lucky, you are driving. Keep your windows up. Don't turn off your engine. And if someone approaches, you floor it through a red light. And the cops will probably be like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, that's obviously you were going to get carjacked.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
not to set, it's not like that everywhere for sure. Because I've been to Brazil, but in some major urban centers for sure. But yeah, like this friend of ours basically almost broke down in tears telling me, like, I've seen my friends killed. The helmet does nothing against how many ton piece of metal hurtling at you. And I just wish everyone who drives a car had to also occasionally ride a bike so that they would appreciate what it's like to be that vulnerable when you're just trying to get from A to B, which is a right.
there's sympathy and then there's empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think empathy is really what you get when you ride a bike as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And so these questions of, you know, oh, that cyclist wasn't wearing a neon vest or wasn't wearing a helmet. What are you saying? Or, you know, that woman was wearing like a short dress. Like, no. To me, it's equivalent. Like, just do not blame the victim. Yeah, I think it's the inherent just confidence of most dudes that they can cycle anywhere and feel impervious to the traffic. And that's why, coming back to what we were talking about earlier, if you have a lot of women cycling, and I saw a ton of women cycling when I was in Victoria recently, that's an indicator that they feel safe and that the infrastructure is actually working and protecting them.
Because women are most of the time risk adverse.
Yes.
And men typically have a higher risk tolerance, which maybe is why we have a lesser lifespan.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
But no, what you're saying about Victoria is that you were seeing a lot of like women out.
It just felt so much safer to cycle there.
And is that a culture thing or also infrastructure?
Both, okay. I would say. It's just chill. It's an island.
There we go.
Yeah.
Do you find, okay, so while I'm biking or while I was biking on the way here, I was thinking, what comes first? I think it's like everything creeping forward, but culture, infrastructure, like you have to fight tooth and nail for every kilometer of bike lane, and then, oh no, it's painted. And then it's like, oh, well, no one's using it. It's like, because it's not a protected bike lane. Aside from all of that, what are your thoughts? Like, what comes first? And I don't know. How should we move forward?
Get city councilors to ride bikes to work. And then city planners. I don't know, Ben. I do not know. I just make art about the future. I make art about bikes being the future because I see them as a tool for saving the planet.
Yeah, it is funny because we've talked, I don't know if funny is the right word here, but we have talked about like the end of the world and post-apocalyptic stuff and efficiencies and then safety and then not feeling safe on a
painted lane
or a thing that is like, oh, there's a network through the city that is the TVP, but hey, don't use it during the winter or at night. Wait, what?
Yes.
It's like shutting down a highway for vehicles for those circumstances, for in the winter, all of it, and then also at night.
Yes.
Like that just sounds ridiculous. And suddenly, so we've covered all of that. So on with the next question. Question number 2.
Yeah.
Now that we're an hour in, did we already cover your first time biking? Or like
as a kid?
Yeah, like
I remember it.
Because you grew up in London.
I grew up, okay, so to be fair, to be specific, I was born in Winnipeg and lived there till I was 8.
Okay.
And so I clearly remember my first bike rodeo, and I remember like the left and the right, and I couldn't remember that somehow, maybe my ADHD brain. So I'm right-handed, and I've always had like a bump on my knuckle from riding, and so that's like how I remembered like my right turn signal,
that works.
But I have always loved riding my bike, and I had those like spokey doke things. Do you know what a spokey doke is?
Spokey doke. I'm thinking of the tassels at the end of the.
Well, you're not a child of the 80s. Spokey dokes are like these little plastic thingies you stuck on your spokes. And
are they
slid up and
like
down.
Green,
they slide
green
up and down.
Pink and stuff?
Yes.
And like, okay, I do know. They're like little
and they make
circular,
little sounds.
I never knew that that's what they were for.
Yeah.
I was always like, how do I get them off?
And now you can get really cool ones for adults that are like super reflecty. And so that at night, like when you're riding your bike, it's spinning and it makes,
You can get the LED ones, I think, too.
Yeah,
and
those
they
are
go
crazy.
blinky, blinky
Those
and
are
stuff.
neat. Yeah.
Ooh, I don't know. Those would make cool photos.
It's just funny how like I never thought about buying a car. I'm just not your typical Londoner in that way. Like I'm just like, why would you if you can get around without one?
So, to not even counter that or anything, for those who want to drive, how does it help them that you don't want to be another car on the road?
Well, you just answered it. But yeah, like I'm one less car. I'm not spewing CO2 into the air. Like I just think that if anybody even stops to think about it for like 1 minute, cyclists should be given so much more respect. Like, I get it. We throw a wrench into your like zooming to your destination because you don't know what we're going to do or how we're going to react. But that's why we need bike lanes, all of us. Because then like you don't have to think about what I'm doing. I can't swerve in front of you. I'm in my lane, you're in yours. Like,
yeah, it's not a get out of my way. It's okay, you do you, I do me. Yeah.
And anyone who likes to complain about the bike lanes going in, if you build it, they will come. Field of Dreams. Like once we have a connected grid that makes sense of protected bike lanes, they will for sure be used in abundance. But right now they get you a little bit of a ways and then they end and you can't get to your destination protected. So people will not use them, especially women.
Yeah, and I have changed my route to get here. Now that Wavell is open and all of that, and 2nd Street and like Fanshawe Park Boulevard, basically there is, albeit painted and then partially protected, and a protected intersection over there at Wavell and Saskatoon Street. It changes like 4 times the name.
Yeah.
But either way, like I took that route today,
Nice.
and I always do when I'm coming here. But we used to go like Cheapside and then another way. Like,
but why did you change your route?
Because now there's a bike lane the whole way. Like I think for literally
you're right.
95% of the way.
Yes.
Aside from the residential streets.
Yeah.
Like it's
And, like,
crazy.
Yeah, painted lanes are, I love Steve and Colleen's song like magic paint, it ain't, right? It's not going to save anyone's life. It's paint. To call it infrastructure is kind of ridiculous, but at least it gives me, as a fairly confident cyclist, I feel more like I have the right to be there. I have the right to take up space. And that's something that women worldwide are not still given, like the permission to take up space and the right to be there. And I feel that as a cyclist as well. So there's many overlaps.
There's a lot of contradictions in the comments of my videos and on any cycling stuff on the interwebs, because what you were just saying reminds me of this. Get off the road, or get on the sidewalk, or get off the sidewalk, get on the road, or what? Wait, it's all of the things. And it's like, okay, you can't do right until there's a bike lane. Even if painted. Again, it's paint's not infrastructure. Anything. But yeah, it's like, hey, I'm here. Like,
that's a good point.
Yeah. Like, it's, hey, I belong here. This is a literal bike lane. Until, and then you can't win. Until I posted a video of someone parking the bike lane. And they're like, oh, that's a shoulder. I'm like, it's a bike lane. They're like, I didn't see that. I'm like, it's in the video. It's not a shoulder. It's a bike lane. They're like, yeah, well, just go around. It's like, what? I can't win. No one can win.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. However, it makes it a lot like easier. Also, it's like, well, officer, I was in the bike lane.
Yeah.
Like, so from a legal perspective.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Because again, from marginalized people, if you're biking on the sidewalk, you can get a fine. And you may be more likely to as well. And you might not feel as confident dealing with an officer when you technically are doing something illegal by riding on the sidewalk. Yeah. But do you sidewalk wide? Do
if I have to. Okay. For sure.
We do as well.
So that made me think of the fact that people who tend to commute by cycle to commute, tend to be more progressive thinking. I feel like London's going to lose a lot of those people if they don't get their act together. I have been living here for several years just because I have to for various reasons. But the moment I don't have to, do you think I want to live here when I could live somewhere where I could bike the city without feeling like a pariah, or that the city doesn't... I literally feel every single day that the city doesn't want me here. It's like living in a city where women feel safe. Or, it's a similar thing.
Yeah.
Or living in a part of a city or type of housing,
I probably to a lesser extent feel what you're feeling. Because even on my ride here today, just revving cars right next to me. And it's like, I feel like they definitely know I'm there. Like, we were both stopped at the red light and you're just tearing out. To hit another red light, of course. I'm like, that hurt my ears. Ow. Yeah. And just slow breathing. I'm like, all right, it is fine.
I have to regulate my nervous system so much, like on a daily basis when I'm riding my bike. Yeah.
Have you gotten the jitters after a thing?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's an uncontrollable. I don't know if I've ever gotten this except for when I've like broken an ankle or or again, been in a yelling match with a driver who's done a bad thing, we'll just say, and it's fight or flight, and my reaction is fight, and immediately, I'm not actually fighting, I'm verbally fighting, and they're in the wrong, I'm standing up for myself, and coming out of that, I look at my hands, and I'm like, oh my goodness, and I get home, and I pass out. I get so exhausted, and it's instantaneous. And so, that just...
I just don't get road rage cycling. I get mad at people for like not respecting my life because that's not cool. But when I get behind a wheel and I'm driving a car, you get this. There's something that it does to you. Anyway, I know you said you didn't want to be only negative. Yeah. You got some more questions for me?
Yes.
I want to just complain about London. We love London.
So no, it's actually a positive here that I can spin is. Council almost gets it in London. Almost.
Really?
Some councillors do get it. Active transportation and such. I think they could be educated, and I agree, like, go on more rides, etc. I am going to be trying to do that and maybe documenting. And by maybe, I mean, if I do that, I definitely want to do that. So
the ride-alongs for the past election were so good.
Yes. And so doing those again, but maybe with actual councillors now, not just the runners-up.
Yes.
There's that. But staff, I am so actually hopeful. I don't know if you've heard, and maybe I need to sit down with some staff of the city. I think they get it. This is why we are actually seeing a lot of this stuff happen.
Well, I'll say this. It took one email, I do not exaggerate, to Daniel Hall, one of our city staff. He's the active transportation manager. I said the lane on Colburn where there's a green painted bike lane and there's a car beside it, and then on the other side of the intersection, there's no more bike lane. I told him about it, and he was actually familiar, and they're taking action from one email. They're going to paint a bike box. Yeah, even though it's not a turning lane.
Yeah, and here's the interesting thing is, it is one email. There might have been others, though, because you don't know who...
Well, also, if they're smart, they know that one email represents, 10? What's the stat? Like, one email represents, the opinion of 100 people, but they just didn't say anything.
Exactly, because so many people don't actually go ahead.
The squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yes, gets the grease, gets the oil.
I say the oil.
Some sort of lubricant.
Yeah.
And demonetized for some reason. But no, really, that's, I think, one of the better things is that staff actually are starting to understand this, or coming out of school having new knowledge, or they got into school. There was a previous podcast over with Tamsin, and so many people are getting into urban planning because of not just bikes. And it's
amazing.
Oh my goodness. And we're starting to see, it's been 4 years-ish. We're starting to see people who have actually gone through with that in mind and get into positions in cities around the world.
But they still have to follow the engineer manual.
Yes.
Which is written in the 1950s.
Yep. But they are actively, I don't know what they're doing, but they're doing it because we're getting bike lanes and we're getting protected intersections here in London, Ontario.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening, but it's happening.
It's happening slowly.
That's why I have to maybe interrogate them.
Yeah.
How are you doing this? How do we help you?
It's definitely better than when I grew up here.
Okay. We will start wrapping up. Okay. So can you tell me more about the community that surrounds biking in London?
So there's just people like me and you who want to actually feel and know we have the right to get around the city and have a choice of how we want to get around the city, and don't want to have to buy a car, and want to speak up for minorities, people who can't afford a car. All ages and abilities includes kids. Kids can't drive, so they get shuttled around the city. If our cities were bikeable, kids could get around the city. Anyway, I digress, but it's just been wonderful to meet like-minded folks through London Cycle Link, Squeaky Wheel, different bike rides, like Tweed Ride, Critical Mass, the Slow Roll, which I emceed twice. That was fun. If you're like-minded around cycling, I just find there's so much more that we end up having in common. Just our worldview. I find cyclists tend to be more hopeful. Otherwise, why even bother? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the London Bicycle Cafe has been wonderful. They are not paying me for this.
They come up so much because they're
they're awesome.
The third space.
Well, they allowed me to have my art show there. And
that was awesome.
I sold out. I sold all my paintings, all my artwork. Can I plug myself?
Yeah.
Hailey
Here's some
Tallman
footage
art.
of that. Oh, sorry. Go on. I'll put some footage here of that. Go on.
Anyway, yeah. If you want to find me on Instagram, it's Hailey Tallman Art. Yeah. And they were just so awesome. It was Bike Month. I had a show of my paintings and prints, and a lot of them are of bikes. And just the community support was fantastic. Yeah.
It was really awesome to be there. Yeah. So I was trying to figure out what I was thinking here. And it was to do with community. And I feel like there are a lot more people out there than we think. Because everyone says...
Who cycle?
Yeah, I think so. People say, I don't see the bike lane ever being used. One, they get cleared a lot faster. As in, we move a lot faster and more of us can get through. As in, people on bikes. We don't get stuck in traffic. So there's that. Two, it's just dispersed across the whole city. But when you are part of those critical masses and you see how many other people are out there, you're like, wow, this is good to be hopeful for. This is really cool to see.
Our mutual friend Luis talks about critical masses in Brazil, and it's thousands of people. Or in LA, You know, they like close off massive streets that are usually only for cars and just for kilometers and kilometers. You know, there are many who are interested but concerned. And if you ever want to cycle, I don't know, contact me, contact Ben, find a friend that you can ride to work with. If you want to start commuting to work, just like inquire around your city and find a bike co-op, find just any kind of cycling organization, and you're going to meet wonderful people.
Yeah, and they're not going to be, especially a co-op, they want you to bike.
Yeah.
Most people who bike want other people to bike. So they're not going to be like, oh, well, you need this, this, or that.
We're not talking about a bike shop that like specializes in like speed road bikes. We're talking about a bike co-op. And they all have great names.
Yeah, yeah.
My God, Cyclistas. That's in Victoria.
I don't know. I'm just thinking of Squeaky Wheel Bike Co-op.
Squeaky Wheel, of course.
London Bike Cafe or London Bicycle Cafe. But I was going to say, like, in some of the closing bit is to bike shop owners, like the official bike shop owners. Stop being so...
pretentious?
Yeah, pretentious. Like, you're coming in, you want more people to bike, then let them explore. Anyways, there's like...
Or have a woman working at your shop.
Yeah, just singular at least.
Yes. Just more approachable for women who are bike curious.
Yep. And if I'm saying this because I have heard people who are interested and they said they went into a bike shop and they got shunned essentially.
Oh, no.
And they didn't get into it. And this is some bike shops in Toronto specifically. And they got like shunned and they're like, oh, okay, I guess I just won't bike then. Like why did you basically shun me? And
that's
that
too bad.
Sucks. Yeah, it's like, what? That is not the spirit of cycling.
Yeah. Yeah. But it hasn't been a lot of my experience. So mosquitoes are coming out.
Yes, the mosquitoes are coming out. That is a signifier that I think we are.
I shall say one thing.
Okay, go for it. Let's close up.
I saw this hilarious comedian on Instagram recently, and he was like, I think that, we really have done all we can environmentally, like we've all brought our bags to the grocery store and, yep, that's about it. Anyway, it's just, his delivery is much funnier, but if you do care about the planet and you just want something simple that you can do, I mean, imagine if you're listening to this podcast, you probably already do it. I don't know, but it's such a simple way to make a huge impact and help your health, your physical health, your mental health, your social health. You're going to sleep better at night knowing you didn't, pollute every time you went somewhere. And
you will literally sleep better because you will have exercise.
Yes.
So
it's just, something you can do that's so simple beyond just bringing a reusable bag to the grocery store.
Yeah.
We can do better.
Yeah. That is a great conclusion. Well, thank you very much for sitting down in your backyard.
With
Do we want to
mosquitoes.
specify that? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is my backyard.
Yeah, it's quite nice, lovely,
Thank you.
very sittable. But yes, the mosquitoes are now fast
Eating
approaching.
us. We must end.
All right, this is that. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.